right. It's a little bit after the previous one. The last episode got kind of cut short. You could see me kind of starting to dance a little bit because I was holding in my pee. So I don't know if that's a problem that happened to Homer. I assume it would have at some point if he's doing a big long performance. But anyway, so now we'll keep going with that. I didn't get to develop this new character that much. The recap here, and again, I'm going to keep saying this so I can just keep all the names straight in my own head, is we're telling the story, an original story off the top of my head of Achilles raiding the city of Thebe, and currently we're doing a sort of rundown of everybody who defends the city, kind of like the catalog of ships in the Iliad, but this is the defenders of Thebe. So we have King Eëtion, king of Thebe. He has a royal guard of 300 heavily plated soldiers in sort of like dendra plate and big tower shields. His wife, Queen Tecmessa of the Amazons, who has with her a force of 50 Amazonian women who some of them ride on horseback with like pelta shields and lightly armored, but who are worth several men apiece because they're Amazons who are really powerful. There is Alcon, son of Eëtion, and his mother being a liege lord's wife of Eëtion, so not a son of Tecmessa. He is a farmer, and he commands a troop of conscripted farmers who all use like axes and scythes as their weapons of choice, because that's their weapons of their, or the tools of their trade. Another son of Eëtion and captain of the army. All of the captains of Eëtion's army are sons of his. So the second son being Keramakos, who wears a ceramic mask over his face to hide a deformity. He's like a warlike prince, sort of Cesare Borgia type, I guess, like a terrifying figure in battle, and he's more aggressively goes out and specifically raids other cities and stuff. He commands a force, I'm going to say, of 200 medium armor, I guess, soldiers with kind of Etruscan plate armor and Aspis-esque shields. All the stuff that evokes hoplites is obviously not accurate to the era, but if you're thinking of the Iliad in terms of how it was transmitted from 700 to 800 BC to the modern day, there are many people who had their hands on it since then. And in classical Athens, there are certain aspects that come in through the Iliad that Homer probably didn't write, but that they added in. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying not to make it too specifically Bronze Age, because Homer didn't even make his stuff Bronze Age all the time. And I'm also trying to not keep it too much to Homer's time as well, because like I want it to feel like it's been transmitted through the years like the Iliad was. Anyway, that's Keramakos. He has that army of 200 medium armored crack fighters, I've called them. Third is Maenin, who's like the beloved prince of Thebe, who everybody really likes because he always gives back to the people. He commands 150 archers, favored by Artemis. There is Mastor, who's in love with his sister by marriage, the daughter of Tecmessa from before she was married to Eëtion, and he is a skilled runner who commands I believe 150 lightly armed runners, like guerrilla fighters type guys. Then the last one that we only developed for like 2 minutes before I had to run away was Pelion, who is like a tactician, and we didn't say too much about him. We had a nice little thing about how if he could see the battlefield from a eagle's eye view, like the cloud gatherer Zeus. I would like to continue developing him before we move on. So let's do that. These intros are getting longer and longer because I'm trying to like make sure I remember all these. You know, it's probably useful for if anybody ever watches these, it's useful to know what's going on, but it's more for me to actually remember from episode to episode who everybody is. Here we go. That great tactician Pelion commanded under and over the city walls of Thebe, creating many an ingenious mechanism and tactical idea to defend that city from all invaders. He it was who had set up the archer towers and the small hatches under the city from which soldiers could sally forth and take on any invaders who besieged around the walls. He had set up the emplacements for tactical locations of sentry outposts that could see enemies approaching from far off. And he it was who was critical to be inside the city when she was being besieged or attacked by outside forces that wanted her wealth or her lands. He, that Pelion, who commanded his band of variegated forces, was leaving the confines of the city to go out and fight in the field. And he would realize before long that the city would dearly miss his tactical advice when he was not to be found, as they were being pelted by the forces of Achilles and Patroclus combined, and all the might of the combined black-armored myrmidons, those ant-men from under Mount Pelion. He, the same namesake as that mountain from which Achilles drew his ash spear, where that great runner Achilles had spent so many a year under the tutelage of the warrior and scholar Chiron. He commanded a force of 200 various troops, from lightly armored fighters to the heavy-plated ones, and he drew them up in formations, some with chariots, these heading to the outside, some with bows who would protect from the high ground, others who were slingers, and those with spears for casting, and those with spears for thrusting, and those who used their shields like a wall, man upon man, each protecting the man to his left, and thrusting from above, so that no enemy could pass. He would soon find a challenge for all his tactical abilities when they came to that ford, that great impassable place where Achilles locked them in. But he it was who commanded his fighters, and allowed them to issue forth from the gates, and all of them loved him, and trusted in his tactical knowledge and abilities. Such was that son, Pelion, son of Eëtion, king of Thebes. All right, not bad. I came up with this thing that in the previous one I had said that he's a great at siegecraft and that he was like able to raid cities, but I thought like, well, we already have Keramakos doing that. And I feel like this character seems more like he probably bolstered the defenses of his own city and helped them tactically. And I think that's an interesting wrinkle in the story, or like in the plans of the Thebans, is that he is so critical to helping the city kind of like defend itself, that now that he's going out to meet Achilles' army with his guys, the people who are left to defend the city are not competent enough to enact all of his like complicated tactical plans, and so they will be kind of sorely missing him. And I put in some of those Homeric like you know, pathos moments where you're almost omnisciently learning about what's going to happen later. So I mentioned that Achilles and Patroclus's combined force with all the Myrmidons was going to come down on the city of Thebes, and that the defenders would sorely miss them. And obviously that hasn't happened yet. They haven't even met Achilles yet. So I thought that was kind of a nice little moment to evoke sort of what Homer does. I'm trying not to do too many things. So I love the Iliad. I think that's not exactly a controversial opinion. It's a masterpiece work, but it sometimes feels a little too much like fan fiction when Virgil would like, and then we went to go see the sirens or whatever, you know, and then we did this thing that Odysseus did. And it's kind of like, well, okay, you're just trying to get him to do he's like an also ran hero sometimes, where he's just doing the same thing again. And that's not to say, you know, Odysseus did the same thing as what Jason did before him sometimes, so it's not exactly controversial to do that. But I don't really like it when they do that in ancient texts, where it's like, well, now we're just going to give you a greatest hits scene that you already knew about from a different story. I like it when they use epithets and descriptive passages and kind of echoes of other things, but not when they pull in an exact moment. So I'm trying not to, I'm sure some of them will slip in, and they probably have already, but I'm trying not to do too many things that are like, oh, okay, this is just, you're doing the same thing that already happened in a previous, like in another story that exists. But I am trying to evoke those stories. And so, you know, there's not necessarily a part where it's explaining that exact thing that happens, and there's never a part that exactly happens like this, but there are definitely parts in the Iliad where Zeus or the narrator jumps ahead and assumes the audience's knowledge of things that are going to happen later in the story. And an ancient audience listening to this would know that the city of Thebe is sacked and destroyed already. And so, you know, that's not how a modern storyteller would do it, but I'm trying to use that kind of like mysterious quality of ancient stories, where like they assume a lot of your knowledge that's just lost to time. And I thought that was kind of a nice little moment. Otherwise, I put in a little bit of stuff about like the different types of troops he has, Pelion, and how he would use his formations, and then did another one of those foreshadowing things where it was saying like, once he gets to the ford where Achilles would head them off, that it wouldn't be worth much, all the formations that he has, because they can't use a lot of space. And I had established that they would fight at the ford previously, where I was saying that Hera would help Achilles by, you know, causing this sort of bottleneck thing to happen. So the story is starting to converge, and once this 6 sons of Eëtion are established, and then they all start marching, we'll be able to kind of really converge these stories here. I also liked that I just threw in a little thing about the namesake of Pelion. So I think it's Pelion is how you would say it, but I did it as Pelion, just to verbally differentiate the name from Peleus, this father of Achilles. Kind of like when I narrate Homeric related stuff and I differentiate the uncle of Jason from the other character who has a very similar name. So it's Peleus is how I pronounce the uncle of Jason, and Peleus is the Argonaut who is, you know, Achilles' father. And in order to not create confusion, I accentuate the difference, although I don't know that it would be pronounced Peleus in usual pronunciation. But yeah, I thought it was nice to have that little thing about how it like went back to Achilles for a second, talking about Mount Pelion or Pelion, and how he was raised by Chiron and stuff. So that was a nice little thing. There are moments as well like that where Homer would like go off on a train of thought about some other thing and then come back to what he's talking about. Overall, I thought it was fine. It's not the most fluid, as we know. A first draft never is, but at the very least, all 5 of the sons of Eëtion so far are pretty well differentiated, and they all have an interesting quality that we could try to like accentuate once it gets to the fighting. So we'll see what happens.